Drank a beer so I wouldn't be forced to babysit for my aunt, by user Lukoka. My aunt, now 40, have 3 kids under the age of 10. At every family gathering I, 23m, become the de facto babysitter despite me not wanting to so the adults can drink. It was her birthday dinner yesterday and my mom promised me that I wouldn't have to babysit and that the kids would be at a friend's house. The first step I take into their home is greeted by 2 ear-splitting screams about how much the kids missed me and 1 toddlery jodeling. I immediately realize I might have been lied to. Normally I don't drink, huge lightweight, but since this was a special occasion I had made some plans. So my aunt enters the hall to greet my mom while I reach into my backpack and walk into the living room and crack 1 out of 2 12% Viking beer I special ordered for me and my uncle. He likes weird beer, and we start drinking. About 3 minutes later my aunt sees the can and starts screaming at me for drinking while watching the kids. I only hear distant screaming. I repeat my mom's promise and she calls me the R word when they are clearly staying here. So I reach out my hand and say $200 for emergency babysitting and I won't finish this beer. She says no, so I chug the half-liter can to the loud cheers and laughs from my dad and uncle. When I'm done I say birth happy day mommy sister with a burp. With my mom just looking hugely embarrassed for my aunt. My designated driver dad ends up watching them the entire night instead. I think he might schedule a vasectomy soon. My GF got an illegal airbring in her apartment complex busted, by user Tunazalad boat captain. TL, DR, constant slamming doors in adjacent apartment woke up my sleeping GF. She found out it was used as an airbnd with 4 total airbnd listings in our small apartment complex and reported them to leasing office and they likely lost thousands of dollars and were evicted/moved out. Edit. Forgot to mention that his LinkedIn account shows he enrolled and completed courses through Here in My Garage Lopez online program haha. Edit 2. A lot of butthurt people in the comments and DMs stay mad. We live in a new and small apartment complex, only 40 units within 2 buildings. It's very low-key and within walking distance to our downtown. It's very affordable for how convenient a location it is. Back in September we noticed the vacant unit beside us was getting moved into by a new tenant with furniture, decor, etc. One weekend not long after moving in we heard what sounded like a little party with music and loud voices well past midnight. We heard a lot of people coming in and out of the front door, but letting the door slam each time to where it shook the walls. Maybe they were having a housewarming party or a friends get-together at the new place. So we brushed it under the rug as a one-off incident. For the next few weeks we noticed a variety of people coming in and out of this apartment and none of them seemed to be the same individuals. Parking also started to become much more busy than usual as well as the cars kept changing. So, something seemed off. My GF started working night shift for her job not long after the neighboring apartment became occupied. She is a light sleeper and noticed that all throughout the morning and before going to work the neighbor's door was always slamming and shaking the walls. She understands that people are active in the day and she can't ask people to cater to her night shift needs, but she felt the constant slamming of doors was not only disruptive, but unusual behavior. One particular morning was the straw that broke the camel's back. She had finally had enough because of the effect it was having on her sleep. She wanted to see who was slamming the door. She heard the door slamming around 10:30 a.m. and got up and witnessed people walking to their car with suitcases and leaving. Soon after a man arrived and pulled up the front doormat and retrieved a key and let 2 women with cleaning supplies into the apartment. Each time they entered or left the door would slam and shake the wall. Seeing this she searched Airbnb and almost immediately found the rental unit next door. Same floor plans, wall paint, flooring, etc. To our surprise and anger we found a total of 4 listings in our apartment complex alone on the host's profile. That is 10% of the apartments in our buildings. Through the listings we found the individual's LinkedIn and business website. On his website he claims that he does something called real arbitrage. Essentially this is renting out a long-term rental on short-term basis, lease an apartment and rent it on Airbnb for profit. This can be done legally with the landlord's permission. The lease agreement does not allow for sublet or short-term rentals. They were renting out 3 of the 4 ground-end units offered, units with unique floor plans. The 4th unit was a handicap-accessible unit. That's right. This man and his business partner leased an apartment meant for accommodating people with disabilities with the intention of using it for his little short-term business empire he was trying to build. Our city and region, like in other places, has been feeling the squeeze on apartment availability and these dickheads are contributing to the problem. It was at this point we took this personally as we had our own problems dealing with apartment availability, wait lists, disappointment, and frustration. My GF called the leasing office and notified them that the neighboring unit is being rented out on Airbnb and asked if that was allowed, to which the office gave an emphatic absolutely not and asked for the listings to be sent to them in an email. Later that day the office called her back and said they notified the tenant that they will be inspecting the apartments the following afternoon. After the inspection was completed, the office notified that they had sent a cease and desist docent of any rental activities outside the lease agreement or face eviction. They also informed us that you should not have any more problems concerning the matter, and if you do, don't hesitate to give us a call. Now, this asshole has 4 leases he is stuck paying $1,500/month for and can't make any more money on through Airbnb. He is bleeding money at the tune of about $6,000/month. His only legal options are to continue paying for them or to break the leases and vacate. Last week we watched as movers emptied out the apartments. I'm sure they lost deposits and or were penalized for breaking the leases. A very expensive lesson for being greedy entrepreneur. Don't be dickheads, folks. Also, don't piss off a night shifter trying to sleep. I found out my husband and dearest friend were having an affair, by user Linux Doyle. My ex-husband and I met when our best friends married each other. He was the best man, and I was the maid of honor. After a couple of years we all lived in the same community and had our 4 children in the same time frame. We hired my friend, let's call her Hobug, to be our attorney for our business when we thought about selling franchises. Hobug and my ex, let's call him Dog, spent lots of late nights working out the kinks in contracts, and more. One July they had to go to New York for a week to interview prospective franchisees. Her ex-husband called me to say he'd hired a detective who followed them and saw them all lovey-dovey, and that they only had 1 hotel room. Well, since it was July and sizzling, her front right minivan window was open about 2. I took it upon myself to puree a few raw shrimp with chicken broth and strain the solids out. Then I fed a long tube down to her rear passenger carpet, and under the seat as best I could. I didn't choose the front seat because it had removable mats. I then slowly funneled about 1/2 cup of my potion down the tube. That week it was over 90 degrees every day. It was ghastly. A triumph. Her husband and I didn't let on that we knew about their affair until we'd each had consultations with every good lawyer in our city, and had our financial ducks in a row. Petty, effective revenge I don't regret. Shame me for being an unmarried mother in front of my kids. I'll show you how much of a sham your marriage is, by user Sisahonies. My next door neighbors have rubbed me the wrong way ever since I moved here 3 years ago. The husband, let's call him Mike, struck me as a little sleazy, and the wife, we'll call her Sharon, seemed nosy and judgmental as hell. But I know myself, I know I'm quick to judge and get stuck in a certain opinion of people. My daughter is about the same age as theirs, and let's call her Maria, and she has a bit of trouble making friends, so when Sharon suggested they have weekly play dates, alternating between their house and mine, I put my dislike of her aside and agreed. It all seemed to be going fine for a while, but my daughter eventually seemed less enthusiastic about going over to their place. I talked to her about it and she admitted she didn't like Sharon. Apparently Sharon had been watching them play and directing them on how to play, and she often interrupted to ask my daughter intrusive questions about our family, especially about my kids' paternity. My daughter is a picky eater, so to start with I would send her over with snacks I know she can eat in case there was nothing there she could eat. My daughter had told me she didn't need those snacks because they had food there she could eat, but it turns out Sharon had told her she was being rude for bringing her own food to someone else's house, and if she wanted to eat she had to eat what Sharon gave her, so of course she just didn't eat there. On top of that, Sharon would invite my daughter to Sunday school every time, and had gotten very pushy even though she consistently said no. My daughter still wanted to play with Maria, so we decided the play dates could continue, but only if they were at our place. I made my excuses to Sharon and initially she agreed to only have play dates at my house. But when Sharon and Maria showed up, they both came inside instead of Sharon leaving Maria at the door as usual. In front of her daughter, my daughter, and my son, Sharon said they'd been praying about it as a family and God had guided them and told them not to leave their daughter with an unmarried mother because apparently it shows I can't make good choices and they're worried I would influence her to make poor decisions with her life and stray from her faith. And then they left. So, I was right about Sharon being nosy and judgmental. I decided to find out if I was right about Mike. I made accounts on Instagram and Facebook posing as an attractive young lady with lots of somewhat local friends. I followed him on Instagram, he followed back. He immediately messaged me, and the messages quickly went from vaguely flirty to obviously trying to get some. I then took screenshots of the messages and sent them to Sharon in a Facebook message. I didn't get a response, but I did see Mike storming out of the house with a small suitcase and driving off rather recklessly. He did come back a couple of days later, so I haven't destroyed their marriage or anything, but I definitely put a dent in it. In such a hurry you shove my cart into me and make it harder for me to load my groceries on the belt? Welp, time to use all those extra small gift certificates I keep forgetting, by user representative _bad57. This just happened. I was checking out at the grocery store with a larger line, so they opened another lane and the staff member asked me to come over. I start unloading onto the belt when I realize the guy behind me only has a few items, except just as I consider letting him go ahead he gives me a dirty look and puts his things on the belt before I'm anywhere near unloading my very full cart. Well, forget letting him go ahead. Then he starts pushing my cart further to the front, except there's still a covered barrier, so there's only so far it can go before I can't unload. I push it back and continue unloading, pausing every few minutes to push his food back. Oh oops, might have squished those rolls a bit. Then he starts telling me I should move, full on gesturing and asking why I can't move up, completely disregarding the barrier. Finally it's time to pay. Well, I've had these pandemic EBT cards I got for my kids sitting in my wallet for ages because they each only have $10 or so and I never feel like taking the time to do multiple transactions. How handy that now I have extra time. After all 6 transactions are done, I thanked the cashier for her patience and told him he should apologize.